$45,040. That's how much money I've spent as the landlord of a single family home in the Denver area in 4 years. All around the country, a lot of people are becoming what's known as an accidental landlord. And because about 70% of the people who watch my channel are in that age range where you talk about rental properties at parties, let's talk about it. So like I mentioned, a lot of people who bought houses to live in are thinking about renting them out because the numbers seem to make sense. I've helped a ton of friends see the unforeseen realities of being a landlord. I'm gonna break down that $45,000. Let's do this. For this video, I'm going to focus on our 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the Denver area just because it's more interesting than our LA condo where the ceiling would basically collapse every time it rained, and to our renter Shelby, I'm still so sorry about that. In a little over 4 years, we've had 3 different sets of renters in this house. That might sound like a lot, but let me explain. You might be someone who pays your rent on time every month, but when you're a landlord, you very quickly realize that many, if not most people, don't. If people paying their rent late is going to drive you crazy, being a landlord might not be for you because that's real life and it's going to happen. All of our renters have paid their rent late at least twice a year, so you gotta make sure you have some cash just in case you need to cover the mortgage. And for our Denver house, because we know this, we have a property management company because they're gonna hound them for the money so I don't have to. So those late payments are going to happen, but every time someone moves out and we have to find someone new, that costs us roughly $5,000. That's about 2 months of rent, repairs for damages, and 50% of the new tenant's first month's rent will go to our property management company because they found them. Our first renters had a 2-year lease, and then about a year into it, they just felt like moving. So they gave our property managers 48 hours notice and they peaced out. And I will admit that I think that we've had some level of bad luck with our 3 renters in 4 years, but that's about $15,000 in expenses that's just been based on people moving in and moving out. People are always going to come and go. You're not going to get that little old lady who rents your house for 15 years and you have passive income for the rest of your life. It just doesn't really work like that, so you have to be prepared. And if that sounds like a lot of money, that's just the beginning. We lived in that Denver rental house, and when we moved out, the refrigerator was new, the dishwasher was new, the washer and dryer were new. The house was in really good shape. Everything worked and was new, down to the water heater, except for the furnace, which literally died last week. But since it's become a rental, here are the repairs and replacements that we've had to do. We replaced the dishwasher for $700, and we had to do a repair on the refrigerator that cost us $650. A big tree limb started encroaching on the house that costed around $300 to trim it, and then we had a big storm that knocked over our fence that was around $375 to fix those posts. We had to replace the gutters. That was $1,945, and like I mentioned, our furnace just died. It was really old, but that was $5,000. That's $8,970 of pretty regular homeowner stuff. So if you're doing the math on being a landlord, don't forget about things like this. And now let's get into the weird, because the weird becomes very regular when you're a landlord. And real talk, if you're emotionally attached to the house that you're going to rent out to people because maybe you lived there first, it might be hard to be a landlord because the house is not going to come back in the same condition you left it in. So that second renter that our property managers wouldn't renew, they had a big dog that dug up our entire backyard and turned it into a mud pit. This was a perfect backyard that backs to open space, which is a big deal in Colorado, turned it into a freaking mud pit. All of that crazy dog digging costed us $4,570 to resod the entire backyard, and we also had to pay for a ton of water to make sure that the grass was okay, but I won't include that here. Also, for no reason, these same renters cut our sprinkler system from our backyard to our front yard, leaving us with a $1,500 water bill because of a leak that they created because people do weird stuff. And we have 3 dogs ourselves, but if you ever wonder why a landlord doesn't allow you to have pets, it's because they probably had an experience like this. We still allow people to have dogs, but crazy stuff happens. We also had renters that had 3 dogs, but they kept shamelessly telling our property manager that they had 0 dogs, despite our neighbors telling us that they had the dogs, and there was like 1,000 poops in the backyard. And one of the worst weird ones for both sides, I will fully admit that, is that there was a slow leak under the kitchen sink that no one ever felt like reporting until it turned into a $6,500 repair for us to fix the leak and replace our kitchen cabinets. We also covered our renter's rent during the time that it was being repaired, but I won't include that in this amount. That's over $11,000 in more unusual repairs, and I had to pay for all of those things in cash because a lot of repair businesses, that's how they roll. So let's add this up. We've got $15,000 for people moving in and out, $8,970 for regular house maintenance stuff, and of course $11,070 for those bigger, more unusual things. And then let's add in about $2,500 per year to our property management company, which is about $10,000 over the course of 4 years. But you might be asking, don't I make money as a landlord? Isn't that why almost everyone in their 30s talks about doing this? So in theory, I roughly make around $500 per month, which is the difference between my mortgage and the rent that I get from our renters. That number obviously goes up and down depending on the rental market and who we have in there, but $500 is pretty close. So over the course of 4 years, that $24,000 in profit was outweighed by the expenses by roughly $20,000. I learned very early not to spend the profit on the rental house because stuff is always going to come up and the expenses are going to be more than what the house cash flows over the course of a year. Over the course of 4 years, that leaves me with a net negative of roughly $21,040. Not as awesome as you might think, but it's not all bad. Over the course of these 4 years, the house has appreciated roughly $150,000. Had I sold the house during peak COVID, it would have been about $250,000, and I'm still kicking myself in the butt for that. From an equity and net worth perspective, it does make sense in the long game. From an everyday cash flow and sanity perspective, it's sometimes not great. Even when I own the rental house free and clear in the near future, I will still set aside around $1,000 of rent every single month for something to go wrong because I've learned that things go wrong. So that dream of owning a rental property free and clear and just making it rain with all the money that you're taking in every month, stuff will always come up. People are going to move out. People are going to break things. It will happen. And sometimes a big dog will tear up your entire backyard, or 3 allegedly invisible dogs will poop all over your backyard. That's just life as a landlord. So if you're in that camp that thinks you might become an accidental landlord in Denver or another city, just make sure you got some cash in the tank. Don't cut it too close because it could bite you in the butt and you don't want to be super stressed out about this. And also, right when everything feels like it's going right and the cash flow is going, something will go wrong. It happens every time. That's my take on being a landlord of a single family home in Denver, and I hope that it gave you a real life look at what it's really like.